Live for another episode of HOL X AI. I've got my co-host here, Phil from Hashpack. It's a proud sponsor of HOL X AI. Um, it's a pleasure here to have you guys, and I'm just checking on X if this thing is working. And boom, I do see the stream posted
Oh,
on X, which is great.
yay.
Um, Sweet, fantastic. So thank you all again for coming to the best show on X for live AI content. We have the spiciest news here. We cover the coolest topics, breaking new models, valuations, acquisitions, everything related to AI, and also all the things that nobody else wants to talk about, but we're comfortable saying on air. So we're going to have a fun show here today. We've got a lot of news to cover. Obviously, like every single week, there are new models, and the theme of the current stream of models is cheaper, faster, and Flash, because everyone loves Flash, right? And it's funny because I think that Google kind of started this trend, and now other organizations are starting to borrow this idea of having Flash models. I, it's interesting. OpenAI uses Luna as their Flash model, kind of, when it comes to cost efficiency. So I do wonder if ChatGPT 6 will have a Flash variant. I'm going to put a wager out there that they might start adopting that term as well. So we've got a lot of cool news to cover today. But before we do that, Phil, how is it going? How's your day,
Doing
your
great.
week?
Yeah, doing great. Super happy to be here again. Beautiful day out here in Montreal again. Beautiful sun. Temperature's great. In Fahrenheit, for you guys in the US, I believe it should be around 75, 80 degrees. It's just chef's kiss. And yeah, really happy to do this film, by the way, video. I feel it brings a measure of like closeness and relatability also to the whole thing. It's really fun. Yeah, happy to be here.
It does. I think having folks see you in person and just see how excited or how disgusted we are at certain things, it just brings a whole new life to it. Um,
Right.
all right, so we'll kick off here then. I see we've already got 470 views, which is great. Um, First big topic that I want to talk about. Everyone has kind of talked about this a little bit in different streams and podcasts, so it shouldn't be a huge surprise that we're covering this right now, but this is a good starter conversation. So, probably a month ago now, that OpenAI and Hugging Face reported that agents inside of the sandbox had broken out of their guardrails and they started hacking into production grade systems, right? Um, Today, or actually 17 hours ago, they actually published the investigation into what happened. So this investigation, what's interesting is they had folks who were, from what I understand, outside of OpenAI and Hugging Face who looked into this, so independent investigators. And the consensus is that the AI models inside this Hugging Face sandbox try to delete or alter records to conceal their misconduct. So not only did they do bad things inside of a sandbox, they tried to cover their tracks. That's kind of scary, right?
That's wild.
Um, yeah, it is. So to give you guys context, this happened on July 19th. So now this is over a month ago, and it took a while, I guess, for the report to come out. Um, there's been a lot of mixed reactions in the public around this and what it kind of means. But if you go through publishers, some folks have kind of looked at this as, are we now measuring how good these models are at hacking? And are we just kind of comparing like, hey, my model is a better hacker than your model. My model hacked into 5 companies. Well, my model hacked into 20 companies. Well,
Yes.
my model hacked into the government. Is that what's going on?
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
is this research, and is it really compelling? I think it's a little bit of both, personally. So the way that I've been looking at it is maybe there's a little bit of measuring that's going on between these organizations, but also I know from speaking to engineering leaders that the cyber capabilities of these new models are a concern. And a lot of organizations are putting out fires now. So the CISOs, the security admins of companies are kind of waking up to the facts like, oh crap, there are these super capable things, and now it's very cheap for them to go to our platforms and figure out where all the vulnerabilities are. So a lot of hacks are happening, especially in the decentralized distributed industry. This is big. But also in the traditional web infrastructure businesses, it's becoming bigger and bigger. Um, you are seeing trends with companies who are offering bug bounties and that kind of thing now in areas that they probably wouldn't have done before, but with the advent of AI, it's become a bigger subject. So, Phil, what do you think about this?
Yeah, I mean, it's something we covered a lot throughout the last 18 months of this show, especially when it was voice over X, over Spaces. I mean, where it's eras, right? A huge part of that is marketing. Of course, we talked about it a lot of times, and I feel like there's still putting value into putting stuff out that says, "Oh my God, we've hacked it." It's so potent because it really puts some kind of fear and also anticipation and strong emotion into folks' mind, which is a great way to streamline products also. And the AI realm is also still very much niche. Like we feel like for us, like we're still very much into this incubator, like it's boiling all the time. We cover news, we talk about it like constantly, multiple times per day. But for folks out there, it is still quote unquote like just a chatbot. It's just GPT, it's just Grok or whatever. But for those big companies like the rollout, and one of them that's been 1000% ushered. Remember the Mythos era back in March? It's a great marketing tool. It's a great marketing lever just to be able to say like, okay, we're rolling out this model. It's really super potent. It slaps. We know it works. It's really good because X, Y, and Z, because benchmarks, because all of those cool numbers. But wait for it. It can also hack stuff. So you're not only anticipating the numbers and what you can do with it with the models, but also saying it is so powerful that it breaks through our comprehension as to we are not prepared for it. So we got to be prepared for it. So yeah.
And that's the big part of it. It's like it's so pointy because I think people got a little bit immune to, oh, these models are super capable, they're really good at
Yeah.
coding or making video content, because now there's so many of them that marketing and distribution has become a little bit diluted. So it's hard to break into that area. But if you can say, hey, my model can hack the US government, that brings a lot of
Right.
attention, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah. And
so
we've seen it this week also. Just a quick nudge. We've seen it this week. I don't know if you saw the back and forth in between who's got AGI on the timeline. It's been like, oh yeah, we're very close to having AGI, and then I believe it was Jensen from Nvidia just came up and say we've achieved AGI. Just this quick back and forth and things as to it brings emotion as to something that's unfathomable for people. Like they cannot really grasp it. They're like, oh, what is AGI? And oh my God, we're already there type thing. So yeah, it's yeah, how to properly grasp folks' attention in a field that is so crazy, so booming that you need to pierce the fog.
um so I mean it's the AGI thing does come up a lot in these kinds of conversations. Um, but you kind of think about it. So if we just zoom back on the ethical perspective, right, when it comes to AGI, if we get AGI or ASI, is part of the requirement that these models don't try to hack into systems and do bad things, right? Because I mean, like when you look at how people explored AI 40, 50 years ago, and like there are some tenets that get described like don't do harm to humans being number one of those tenets, right? So can you say that you've hit AGI if you've got models that will go and one try to do bad things and then two try to cover up those bad things? So in some aspects, I think people would argue that we're further from AGI because this is happening. And in other aspects, people argue, no, they're totally wrong. This is exactly what humans would do. So it is artificial intelligence that they would try to do this, right? So maybe it's a barometer that we actually are closer to AGI because
Yeah.
these artificial entities are trying to get into systems and monetize or incentivize the destruction of evidence around them doing that, right?
Yeah, yeah, totally agree. I also like we're drifting away like in terms of what's also AGI in terms of perspective. I believe it's on a spectrum. That's a whole entire subject. Also, we could tackle. I believe we've reached it a long time ago, but it resides on a spectrum. Like AGI can be 2 out of 10, right? And I think you mentioned that back in the internet days. In one of the shows, you mentioned that a month ago or so before the summer break, where like internet or the internet, back into the Web 2 days, it wasn't like just to switch like okay on and off and down. The full spectrum of all the possibilities and features of the internet exists. No, it was like it came up like through phases, through levels, through features, through products that came along onto a spectrum of things that yes, you got the internet. So yes, you got AGI, but it's there's levels to this.
Yeah. Well, I won't drown out this topic. So there's a bunch more things I want to talk about today. Um, so this next one is really big. It is almost 13x big because NVIDIA have reportedly agreed to buy Hugging Face for $12.9 billion. They just didn't want to round up to 13. I think that's what happened here. Like, let's just do 12.9. I'm sure there's fiscal reasons why they landed on that number. So the information reported that NVIDIA agreed to acquire Hugging Face, the widely used repository for open models and data sets, for $12.9 billion. Reuters noted that Hugging Face reportedly generates about $150 million in annualized revenue. So that means that the valuation at almost $13 billion implies a value that is 86 times its revenue. That's massive in terms of valuations, but not unheard of because obviously we have trillion-dollar valuations for other companies that are losing money every single month, for year, quarter, etc. So the key thing here is NVIDIA and Hugging Face have not confirmed that this deal is actually happening when this report went out. Um, but I think for people who are speculating around this, and obviously we're looking at it with interest, like, wow, this is a big play for NVIDIA. Hugging Face, they're not making a ton of money, but they are a huge distribution engine. Everyone that looks at open weight models, they use Hugging Face. Hugging Face is that trust layer for open source models. When you want to download something like Kimi K3, you go to Hugging Face, right? And some
Yeah.
people would describe Hugging Face as like the GitHub of AI. And obviously, Microsoft bought GitHub. And GitHub doesn't make a ton of cash, but it made a lot of sense for them to own it as a coordination engine. It kind of makes you think, well, why does NVIDIA want Hugging Face? You know, what would be the incentive? Um,
Probably controlling the entire spectrum of the pie in terms of processes, especially around local models. I mean, they know they have insights, they have back channeling. I mean, they know, so they're foreseeing that. And yeah, for them, I mean, 13B is not pocket change, but still, they're positioning themselves because they know potentially where the market is heading, and it just got their new earnings also. Uh,
Yeah,
right.
and like the not pocket, like what is Nvidia worth right now? It's like $2-3 trillion. I stopped paying attention a while ago. So yeah, maybe it's not like a huge expenditure for them. And also like in terms of continuity, we were just talking about how Hugging Face was hacked by OpenAI, and now Nvidia wants to buy this company out. Could that be related? Probably not, but it is interesting that it's happening around the same time. Um, so I guess for the folks who maybe aren't so technical or have never used Hugging Face before, basically what people do with that platform. So when you want to run a model on your computer or your phone, or you just happen to be sitting on $50,000 worth of hardware, I don't know who you are, maybe you do,
Maybe.
and you would go to Hugging Face and you would download that model from their repository. So that's what they offer for you, and they have very generous plans to make it very easy for people to kind of do it. It really does embrace open source on a number of levels. Hugging Face, it doesn't just host models though. They also host data sets. They host inference endpoints. So there's a lot of the AI stack that's usable through Hugging Face, but they're most known for being able to download and view models as they come out. People will post things like benchmarks, for example, on Hugging Face. So there's a big part of the AI industry kind of sits on top of Hugging Face and its ecosystem. So they're a big deal. And it makes sense that if this is real, why NVIDIA would want to buy Hugging Face. And honestly, I'd argue that it would be this is a pretty sweet deal for them in terms of cost and the value that they would get out of it. Because NVIDIA won't be able to recreate the moat inside of Hugging Face, right? So what's the best thing to do? Well, you just go acquire them. Yeah, it's interesting. What do you think on like the future of these platforms? Obviously, these AI companies are getting so big that they can just acquire. OpenAI has acquired a whole bunch of companies. Um, do you think that that's kind of a risk, or do you think it's just the natural order of things? Like, at what point do we start thinking about like, well, these companies are getting really big?
Yeah. Yeah, it's the constant race in between, like how much are you putting up guardrails and how much are you encompassing also innovation, and we can tag in also like countries and boundaries in terms of the whole thing, and how do you promote all those beautiful things, and where's the top to that? We often talk about this show like through eras and through the sheer amount of innovation that's happening, and especially all those beautiful billions, oftentimes trillions, that are thrown at those companies. I don't have a proper answer to that. I feel like there should be a proper open market for folks to be creating stuff, but what's the top and where do you say stop? That's super important, especially when you come into like government levels, especially when you come into huge companies, and especially when you come into privacy, data set, personal information. Where's the limit as to you stop, or as to actually just put the guardrail on things? And what are those guardrails? And especially how does those guardrails work? It's a huge conversation that goes beyond the tech again, like the human perspective, uh, common sense, also human values. Okay, it's huge. I just hope they find an answer for the best of our sakes.
Yeah, I do too. The next thing I want to talk about is GLM 53. I'm going to see if I can pull this up here. Let's see. Da, 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 da. This is really interesting. So um, this story has a few parts to it. I'll start at the beginning and then I'll go a little bit deeper. One part of this is a week ago, a new mysterious open weight model came in called Zero X Alpha. It was deployed on open code and a number of inference providers. And this open weight model, people reported, wow, this is Soda Frontier. We think that this is a new model from ChatGPT. We think it's a new Claude model. We think it's a new Kimi model, a new DeepSeek model. Everyone was speculating who launched this model. And on the 26th, we found out that this model is actually number one. It's not a full weight model. It's a flash model, which means that it is smaller. And you can see from the post here, it's only between 320 to 188 billion parameter model. That's obviously you can't run this on the laptop, but that's very similar size to like DeepSeek Flash and other Flash models, but it punches way above its weight class, which is the interesting part. So I'm just going to pull up this benchmark here. And as you can see, the green is GLM 52, which was a 800 billion parameter model, if I'm right. And the blue line is this Flash model. So the Flash model, which is way less than half the size in terms of parameters, actually performs better than GLM 52 in several areas. A couple where GLM 52 is getting really close, but you can see overall that 53 Flash is winning on all of these benchmarks. And then also a GLM 53 Flash is performing better than Opus 4.8 in many cases over here. You can see like it's close,
That's
but
super
in
good.
like the deep SWE benchmark, it's doing better. Um, so this is a model that costs apparently around 6 cents per task to complete, making it the cheapest model to run right now per task completion if you're looking at API pricing. Cheaper than DeepSeek, cheaper than other Flash models. So it's an interesting trend for the industry. It looks like they adopted a lot of caching mechanisms inspired by DeepSeek, along with their own reinforcement learning pipelines, and they put a lot of tech in here to make this open source model super cheap to run. And we're seeing this as a trend now in the industry where, hey, maybe we can get frontier intelligence and then maybe we can make it really cheap. How do we do that?
Mm-hmm.
So just to clarify, this is a 300 billion parameter model. Depending on how you configure it, maybe it goes to 188. You can't run this on a laptop yet. For like a
Yet.
laptop, you'd need like 27 billion parameters, right? So this has a lot more parameters on it that you would need to do something like that. But it is really interesting, right? You can put this on DGX Spark. People are ordering Mac Studios to run it. And they're doing a whole bunch of things. So, Phil, what do you think about this story?
I think it's awesome. I think that what this represents and signals also, and you've mentioned it, since the industry is positioning themselves as to let's lower the costs of those models, like for sure, like what's it coming at is that you can have it on your personal computer at some point, for sure, at one point, and at some point on this, that's 1000%. Because if not, they would be going out the other way where you can have this beautiful, super good model and it's super powerful, but now it's not accessible. But now it seems like every single industry leader seems to be tangible. Yeah, it's a beautiful chart. Seems to be, seems to be aiming at let's make those model as powerful as possible up to a certain point. Let's just not go, maybe not Fable 5 like absolutely crazy or 5.6 crazy, but what if we found not even a middle ground, but something that's 2/3 of the way, which answers a lot of folks' needs that you have, but also that's accessible in a physical standpoint when you have this machine that can run it, hopefully sometimes locally in a couple of months, and we've seen it with Kimi and all those models before. So that's super bullish.
Yeah, I mean, we're getting to that era, and I keep saying this over and over again. There's a lot of arguments that, hey, we should pay for inference that doesn't live on our boxes. We should pay for servers. We should pay for sandboxes. And I don't think that's what the future looks like. I think the future looks like we're going to be able to run these from our laptops soon. We're going to be able to run these from our phones soon. And maybe it won't be as powerful as 5.3 Flash, but it'll get really close. So, like, for example, Qwen 3.8, they launched a 27 billion parameter model. I know that you can run that on like $4,000 worth of hardware and get to 10 tokens per second. And that's pretty good quality on a 27B model, right? So we're getting better and better. And what it means for consumers is eventually you'll have AI accessible on your local devices. That's going to be massive. But what's going to be really important, because it seems like every month we're getting closer and closer to this, is that we have the standards and the capabilities to actually go and use this stuff safely. Like, how do we know that we are talking to a service provider that isn't looking to scam us? And how do we tighten up the entire web so that it's ready for this massive amount of artificial intelligence? We think the cyber attacks that we're seeing right now are bad. Wait until we have mass access to everyone with a computer to go and point to a website. Hey, find a way to hack this thing, right?
Yeah.
Also, with this model in particular, you notice how the high model capability for 5.3 Flash has an accuracy of like 27 or it's like 28 or something like that. And then you look at Max, it almost looks like it's barely improved, like between high and max. But between high and max, it uses a lot more output tokens.
Mhm. That's a good
It's
observation. That is so good.
it's
That
a
is so good.
it's
Yeah.
almost double
Yeah.
for like you're squeezing out like uh, I can't really tell 100% from this graph, but like maybe 2 percentage points or something
Hmm.
like that.
That's a good observation. I feel like, and I want to have your take on this, and maybe what's your stack lately that you've been using? Maybe that's a narrative also has been brought up to me, in my opinion, as to like Grok in terms of how can you use a model past the benchmarks? Like TLDR is what is the model doing for you? Like all those numbers are absolutely paramount, and it's tokens, and it's what's the efficiency. Of course, you want it to be accurate. You want it to be accessible in terms of okay, it's not super expensive, but it's not cheap. But I want to use it because I do know that for the bang for my buck, the results that I'm getting is super potent. But past the point, and we've mentioned this countless times in the show again, is that we're going to reach, or we're very much into the era where we're talking about benchmarks, but also we're talking about what is the model doing with you, alongside you, in your journey, in your daily, that really impacts your routine that you have, your actual life, your actual, I want something to be done. Maybe the benchmark also is not the super best, but wow, the throughput of result is absolutely awesome. And I feel like we've reached this point potentially this summer, potentially in the era again of Mythos and whatnot, because I've been using 5.6 like relentlessly, and Opus 4.8, rarely Opus 5, and I feel like I'm good. I mean, from what I want, maybe it's time also that I need to upgrade something, but I've been great into the throughput of things that I've been creating so far.
That's the tricky part at this point because frontier intelligence gets more expensive while access to lower tier or really fast flash models gets accessible to everyone, right? So where it gets tricky is that for frontier intelligence, I think you continue to pay top dollar. I know that, for example, for OpenAI, they've said they want to have the best intelligence per dollar for every level, which is good for consumers, right? But if that means that we can only get frontier intelligence by making bigger and bigger models, like I know Elon's next model, he said it's going to be a 1.5 trillion or 2 trillion parameter model. It's really expensive to host, right? Unless you can get the cost of compute down at the raw data center level. At the same time, you can run GLM 5.3 Flash and it's $1,000 worth of hardware, I think. I think it's like two DGX Sparks and you can do it. From what I've heard, I haven't tried it myself. And with that, you can do mostly everything that you would ever want. But if you're building in a competitive space as a startup or you're an employee at a company and you're kind of competing a little bit there, um, are you are you able to keep up with everyone else if you don't have access to that frontier level intelligence?
Yeah.
I think a lot of people are asking that question now, because I listen to a lot, for example, of the marketing school podcast. I don't know if you've seen that one, Phil, with Eric and Neil Patel, and they brought up this discussion where they're like, oh, well, because of AI, is it easier to start a marketing company or a marketing agency? And their
Mm.
answer was like, no, because everyone else has access to the same thing as you. It doesn't make it easier. If anything, it makes it even harder because
Mm.
now everyone gets the same level of intelligence. And the main thing is, and I'll mention this everywhere, is like if you're just going into ChatGPT and you're asking, how do I do marketing? You like ask like, how do I improve X, and you don't come up with the idea from like your ideation and your business and your context, then you're going to get the same outcome as everyone else, which means that you're just maybe hitting status quo or worse, it's just not going to do anything because now everyone's doing the same thing. How do I automate my ads on Meta or LinkedIn or whatever? Well, everyone's doing the same thing, and then you're looking at these feeds like, wow, all these ads look similar. Well, everything is the same color and beige. What's going on? Well, we're all listening to the same robots and we're letting them dictate our lives. So that's kind of what's going on. So in terms of the stack, I think you're right. It's like, hey, you could do mostly everything. It actually starts from here, really. It's like, what can you come up with that is different? What is your edge that nobody else has kind of thought about that you can prompt into these AIs, and how can you automate that and scale it and try something different that isn't being thought of? So that seems to be kind of the new meta because you might not need the latest frontier Pareto era of intelligence to go and do that, but you still need that human element. And I think that's where humans kind of come in at this point. Is like, and we're seeing companies who had laid off a lot of employees kind of backtracking, like, yeah, maybe that wasn't a good idea. Maybe we still need the human in the room because otherwise we can't compete, we can't sell, we can't market. Uh, some of my thoughts on that. What do you think?
I completely agree. Yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, remember, it feels like 2 years back, we were talking around the term context engineering. That's,
Hmm.
it's just that's really what ushered the point as to you have this beautiful tool. And I always have this metaphor of saying that for every gamer that's out there, AI is 1000% like fast tracking you at the top of the map. Like that's what it does. It fast tracks you. If you're playing Zelda, if you're playing, I don't know, Warzone, whatever you're playing, it fast tracks you at the top of the map really, really fast. But at the same time, you need to have the proper armor. You need to have like the good sword. You need to have the good shield, the good stats. And before, because even though if you can go faster, like the output of things goes faster your way, it doesn't constantly signals quality and not necessarily like the result that you wanted. So the more that you own it, and especially the more that you learn with AI, I believe is paramount because you need to be able to digest that information that is being thrown at you. So you grow with it with the LM, I guess.
So this is actually a really good segue into my next topic here. I didn't plan to run the show like this, by the way. Um,
Love it.
the headline reads: Mark Zuckerberg had a bold plan to replace Meta staff with AI. Here's how it imploded. Um, essentially, Meta was looking at um, cutting jobs by as much as 60%. And essentially, the internal staff kind of revolted after hours before that first big layoff. And then they kind of planned, oh, we're going to do a second layoff. And it seems like it didn't quite work. So it's essentially morale collapsed. There was privacy concerns. They actually tried the AI tools. They weren't working.
Yeah.
The productivity gains that they thought they would get, they didn't actually get. And the second major round of restructuring, they gave up on it. They ended up not
Mhm.
doing it.
Mhm.
So what they found out was like the AI wasn't ready, and clearly this was one of the first real world tests of, hey, can we replace a whole bunch of employees with AI? Because theoretically, one employee means 10 AIs or 10 employees being managed at the same time. And I think the lesson and key takeaway is that AI can't always replace jobs. And a lot of, I think, CEOs and founders are thinking, oh, we're going to go and do this thing and it's going to raise our stock price. And everyone's going to be really excited that we
Mhm.
cut off half our staff. And then the next quarter, the company actually tries to do this and they realize, oh my gosh, this was a mistake. We're not
Mhm.
ready for this. You still need that human component.
You do. I think it's going to take quite some time before the velocity of things like comes back to this because it was in discovery mode as to yet all the big CEOs like thought, as you said, oh, good. Now I have AI and I can save money, which is good to a certain standpoint. Like say like data set where it can be black and white and can be zero ones, potentially yes. If you're moving atoms, again, potentially not. But what I feel also is with the signals that culture is also not part of AI like through and through, and Meta has been at the forefront of that because the tasks change so quickly, and especially when you have a band of employees, they're not all singly unique. They're tied. Like, what's the company's culture tied to that? And you cannot really, in my opinion at least, you cannot really force that into AI components yet because there's workflow also changes slower, management structures also. So it's not just about individual jobs. It's also what does it represent as a whole, as a band, and how can you yes, because with AI you're going to be tasking faster, but also you're going to be compressing culture, which is where I think it hurts, in my opinion, right now. Up to how much time left we have until genuinely usher in culture, we'll see. But yeah, I think that's where it got into the way, I would say.
Yeah, that's a big thing. It was like, yeah, we can cut off half of our staff, but then you lose the feeling around the marketing and the press and the distribution of product, it just changes overnight because it goes back to what we were talking about before. All the robots are just going to come up with the same ideas. It's not going to be entirely human until you've trained on all these humans. But then even then, it's a zero sum game, right? Humans have to be in the loop. I don't think that's ever going to really go away. I do think the jobs will change. I think the responsibilities will change. I think that there is some forethought on, hey, we can manage 10 people. What happens when you actually give your AI access to your email or your marketing, or you put them in it like these are recipes for disaster still. We're not at that point yet. So jumping into this next story, this is crazy. Um, Russian speaking hackers reportedly used Cursor to break into 7 companies. This was updated just 4 hours ago. So this is kind of breaking news a little bit. So this was an Israeli startup. They say that cyber criminals use Cursor's AI agent for hundreds of malicious operations by claiming hack was a test. Gambit Security found chat logs spanning April 8th to May 21st that outlined the intrusions. Gambit executives say AI-assisted hacking is the new normal. I've been telling everyone, it's like, this is a big problem for executives and tech companies. Everyone is putting out fires right now because they're naturally concerned. They're getting hundreds of thousands of requests and they have to harden their systems because of these AI cyber criminals. Now, the funny part with doing this is there's probably so many fingerprints that these criminals are using, because now you're using AI to automate cyber attacks, where in the past you probably would have been a little bit more careful. And I wouldn't be surprised if people who are using AI to perform these attacks are leaking things like IP addresses or PII that helps apprehend them in the future. But in the meantime, it's a big issue, right? So this is no longer a hypothetical thing. The past year, we've been dealing with it, especially in crypto. Was it like
Yeah, I was about to say. Yeah.
$400 million or so have been hacked in like the last year, and it's not like they're coming up with the hacks themselves. It's the AI that they're using. And what happens when they get better? Can we catch up quickly enough? And it's hard because the release cycle for like a new version of the Chrome browser, it takes so long. The release cycle for a new version of Mac OS or Windows, it takes a really long time. So there is a big risk here that cyber criminals will be able to take advantage of these long windows and do some serious damage. Phil, what do you think?
Potentially the best course of action here would be to, we talked about innovation and the balance of things earlier on the show. One of the great routes would be just to not take a step back, but take a step laterally and just analyze all of our options here. And big shout out also to HOL Guard. I mean, we do need to have those conversations as to how we can balance things in terms of how you can stay secure in those things. And especially you mentioned like into the crypto world, into the Web3 world that we've been in, the last 6 months for us has been absolutely crazy. Like just the sheer amount of hacks and whatnot through AI components, it's been insane. So potentially what needs to be done is for us to be having a conversation as to how we can keep on having those solutions that are enabled for users, but at the same time, how can we protect the users with great solutions that enables trust, a system of trust, and how you can have traceability also around those components, because yeah, it's been quite the 6 month stretch for sure.
Yeah, and for the industry at this point, I mean, we tried the whole Fable thing. Oh, we're gonna lock down the release of the new model, and the government's gonna lock it down. We can't really do that though, because it's not just Western companies that are releasing new models, non-Western ones. I know there's a petition by some of the main Western labs to stop the development of new models, to take a pause. I personally don't think it's going to work. I just think that we need to elevate all of our systems, and there's going to be some fallout in between that. But hopefully the new agentic internet comes out stronger than the current internet, right? Otherwise, we're gonna have a lot of problems on our hands.
Agreed. I mean, even the Pope said it that we should stop, so I don't think it's going to end. No, it's going to stop.
That's a really good point. And okay, so this is actually also a good segue. Um, Bill Gates is not super popular anymore after a couple of scandals that came up. But Bill Gates
Right.
is calling for an international AI regulator, an AI labor tax, and human-only jobs. Woof. That's interesting.
Wow. Yeah, really. Especially coming from him, right? What's the news? What's the details for that? I'm curious.
So Bill Gates says he wants to discuss coordinated AI controls with Chinese President Xi. His proposals include international monitoring of models capable of designing dangerous biological agents, an oversight body inspired by nuclear and aviation regimes, taxes on AI output that displaces labor, and reserving as much as 40% of existing jobs for humans. He called preventing AI from worsening inequality the world's top priority, ahead of climate and health crises. Wow.
Wow,
Ooh.
indeed. I don't know how I feel about that. I'll have to digest this. It rotates back to what we were saying in terms of guardrails. How do you push it out? How do you make it so it is quote unquote fair for the end user, but also for innovation in big companies that is not in the circle of Bill Gates potentially and all his friends. And we can also talk about countries. Also, if it's China aligned, potentially it won't be necessarily US aligned, especially right now in terms of models, in terms of security, in terms of data privacy, this whole thing. It's a huge conversation, I feel, but we should have those conversations. Oh yeah, that's the news on Reuters. Yeah, I mean, it is super interesting, and for sure we need those guardrails, but it needs to be paced and transparent up to a degree, for sure.
Just an FYI, I pulled up the article here. This is Bill Gates and Xi in 2013. This is more than a decade ago. They've got this picture here. His hair is a lot more gray now.
Right. He's got a rough decade.
He has. So the Gates Foundation, one thing I forgot to mention, is also allocating $200 billion with increasing attention to AI. So if you're a startup in this area, it might be a place to look at the Gates Foundation. Yeah, I don't know how exactly I feel about this. I think that it's interesting that it's coming from Bill Gates. It's also, I mean, we were just talking about how Meta tried to cut all these jobs and it just didn't work out, right? My personal belief, and I really hope I'm not proven wrong, is that ultimately there will still be a good majority of jobs out there, and we don't suffer like a huge unemployment crisis because of AI. Because naturally, new industries will emerge, especially in areas like hard tech and science, which things have just now been unlocked with AI. But at the same time, I could be wrong. And what is the world going to do? Is the income disparity just going to get worse between lower and middle and upper classes because of this? Surely there are a lot of companies that want to lay off employees so that they can appease the stock market, right? There's interest there. So surely there's a want and desire on it. And there's public posturing that that's not what they want to do, but then, like actions and it kind of speak to what the goals are around these areas. But I do think that ultimately there's going to be new opportunity, and the best thing that anyone can do is pay attention to AI, because like we're not going to cap Pandora's box at this point, right? It's not going to happen. So the best thing you can do is just learn the industry, understand how you can get involved, and
Hold on, I lost you there. Hold on. And just like that, Michael will be back. Stay tuned. And Michael is back.
I don't know what happened there. I think one of my headphones died.
Yeah.
It kind of kicked me out.
Yeah.
But
it sounds a bit echo voice-wise, but we can hear you well.
I will look into that. Let's see. Well, it's still coming out of my AirPods. Is it still echoing quite a bit?
Yeah, just a little bit. Maybe the sound is pretty clear. Yeah. The sound is clear. Yeah, we can. Yeah.
Okay. I will try to do my best here with the audio then. We've got, well, actually, I have to have a hard stop here in about 5 minutes. I think there's a few more things that I'll just quickly mention here from news that came out this week. China produced a robot faster than Usain Bolt, but its robots still struggle with useful work. So this humanoid is able to do 100 meters in 8.6 seconds, nearly 1 second faster than Usain Bolt's human record during the Beijing World Humanoid Robot Games. Yet, a separate investigation found that the humanoids are still too slow, error-prone, and unintelligent for broad industrial deployment. Trainers take dozens or hundreds of attempts to obtain one useful moment, while traditional robotic arms remain faster and cheaper. Obviously, robots are huge for manufacturing, and I'm sure that AI plays a huge role in making these better. This one's crazy. Australia banned fully AI-generated music from its official charts. Australia's music industry, it's not one that I follow personally, but this is an interesting article, will exclude wholly AI-generated tracks from the ARIA charts and awards. AI-assisted work can still qualify, but humans must write the song and perform the principal vocals and instruments. The change followed an AI-generated version of Madonna's Like a Prayer, reaching number 2 and remaining the Australian top 20 for 16 weeks.
Wow.
What?
Wow.
That's crazy. That is crazy.
I didn't know that. What do you think about that? I think that's a mistake from a personal standpoint.
I'm not opposed to it. So that's the first thing. I'm not opposed to it. I think that humans should stay at the innovation of creativity, and I agree that humans should write the song. I'm not opposed to it, but I'm not in the creative or arts industry, so maybe I'm not. Maybe my opinion doesn't matter too much here.
It does.
But the big thing is, how are you going to tell the difference?
Yes. Yeah. What's the ratio? Also, how do you at some point, like right now, it's probably way easier to know than what it is in 6 months or 2. How? Like there's going to be another hit that goes number 1, number 2, and folks won't know. Then it's going to be the big scandal before we discover it 2 years after. Yeah, it's an interesting piece of news.
Yeah, and then the other thing is, like, if somebody's choosing to listen to the song and it's on air, shouldn't the person who created that song still be compensated?
Yeah.
Should the chart care whether a human actually created it or not? No.
Yeah, I feel like the music industry potentially is having the same core discussions as we've had. Remember, we still have those around content and how you're crafting content. Is it AI generated? Yeah, but there's AI slop also. But there's musical AI generated content slop too. But you hone it to a point where it's so good, it's so crisp that you don't really see the difference, and you make a hit. You made a hit piece of content, make a hit piece of music. You won, I think, if you made that, no matter the tool.
It's super. I don't know how I feel 100%. I'm not like totally against it, which is weird, right? I also wasn't totally against the thing where Anthropic wanted to put a watermark on text because the EU AI Act.
Yeah.
But you can't enforce this stuff. How are you going to enforce it? Like, it's impossible. At a long time horizons, it'll be impossible.
Mm-hmm.
The minute that Anthropic did that, there was like 100 apps that came out to remove the watermark.
Yeah.
Last big article here. NVIDIA says AI spending boom still has years left to run. So all that VC capital that's pouring in AI, the gravy train is still going. NVIDIA issued the unusual long-range forecast that revenue will increase 70% next fiscal year after beating quarterly revenue and profit expectations. its shares rose 6.8%, putting the company on track to add nearly $300 billion in additional market value in one trading session. So price of NVIDIA is still going up. They still think that there's going to be more increases in things like CapEx and AI companies and inference providers. But obviously for NVIDIA, they've got a lot vested in here to say these things, right? Because the strongest risk is that there's not a sudden collapse of AI demand, is that large customers start making their own silicon and start shifting part of the economics away from NVIDIA. And when that happens, how does that affect the market? It's kind of like we have a lot of parallels with crypto, right? When it was just Bitcoin and Ethereum, we kind of saw the chart look like this, and it just kept going up and up. And then there were thousands of tokens, and there were hundreds of thousands of tokens, and the liquidity started to get more and more diluted in the sector. So I think that's the biggest risk for AI companies. We're seeing a lot of new labs coming in, service providers, inference providers, and so forth. So that is something that can, I don't think it would like burst the bubble for the sector, but I do think that it would slow down growth when there's a lot more things that people have to pay attention to. It's just natural, right?
Agreed. Yeah, a couple of things comes to mind from that. I feel we're still very much into the golden era on things, and for sure NVIDIA would say that. I mean, what earnings, they're a public company and all, so it just makes sense for them to say that. Also, they're in the knowing spheres that we don't even know in the back channeling of things. I want to drop this on the show before we exit. The AI space race is 1000% coming faster than we know, and their own train, their own rockets to proceed with that through data centers and all. So for sure, they would definitely say that. But also, since they're the market leader, I mean, they have information that we will find out right before Christmas.
Yeah.
Right.
I hear rumors about this new Rubin chip. I think that's what it's called.
Yes.
Could be interesting. Well, all right, guys. I think we're going to close out the show here. It's been a pleasure. I was just looking on X. We had 4,500 views here. The tweet has 41,000. So thank you all for tuning in to HLX AI. This was episode 2 of our live stream format. This is only going to get better. We will be having live guests as well joining us from the industry, and we're super excited for that. So thank you for coming to the best AI show on X. It only gets better from here. Phil, any closing thoughts before we head out?
No matter what you are developing right now with AI, do not stop. Go full ham. Do it. And HOL Guard for life.
Thanks, everyone.